The Economist magazine stated recently that Donald Trump was the world's biggest threat to the New World Order. Now, is that a good thing for America or a bad thing? We'll answer on today's edition of End of the Age. Proponents of globalism have been building a new world order for a long time. For example, the League of Nations was founded at the end of World War I. They hoped at that time to produce a world government that would stop all war. However, our Parliament, our Congress, was unwilling to surrender sovereignty to this world government. It fell apart. It did not work. Finally, it was totally disbanded as World War II began. At the end of World War II, now then the nations were screaming, we've got to have some kind of global structures to prevent war. The United Nations was formed. It picked up where the League of Nations left off. Now remember, all this time, they were building structures ultimately to end the nation state and to form a one world government. The World Bank was formed, the International Monetary Fund. The International Court of Justices was to determine cases between nations. The World Health Organization, the World Criminal Court. Now this court was designed to try individuals in nations. And then finally Nafta came along, the GATT came along. Let me tell you a little bit about Nafta. I was following this when it all was enacted by President Bush Sr. NAFTA stands for the North Atlantic Free Trade Association. And it was an agreement between Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Well, I was totally against it at the time. I knew it was a move toward world government, but it didn't seem like anybody cared. It went through almost without any opposition. Well, because it went through so easily, that was when Bill Clinton was now becoming the president. He felt like, well, the time is right to go straight forward with a global trade agreement. That agreement was called GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. And it was approved quickly. And because it went through with so little opposition, within 6 months or so, they renamed it to what it really was designed to be, the World Trade Organization. Now, the World Trade Organization oversees all international trade for all of the nations that are members. And if another nation has a complaint against the United States, if they feel like we've violated the terms of the World Trade Organization treaty, then they can take us before the World Trade Board. There are no journalists there. You will never hear about it. You'll never read articles about it. There is incredible power before this World Trade Organization, and it's a vital part of the planned one world government. Now, after this time, then President Obama signed the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a huge trade deal that was going to include 40% of the nations of the world, but ultimately they thought it would encompass 90% of all the nations would be under a global trade agreement. And then President Obama put us under the Paris climate change. Now, this was designed to control America, and we were going to have to invest trillions of dollars into the Paris Climate Change Accord. It would have been over a period of many years, and yet after 100 years of trillions of dollars, it would have only changed the temperature 1/10 of 1%, and that was only according to what they thought. So consequently, President Trump came along and he pulled us out of the Paris climate change. Also, the United Nations had their Sustainable Development Goals. This was the program for all the nations of the world to move toward world government. All the nations were supposed to reach certain goals, and the have nations were to help the have-not nations, but to bring everybody along so that the have nations would give to the have not nations. We would pull them up until really the goal was to be a great one world socialist government. Well, let me go a little further here because there's some things you've just got to know. Mr. Paul James Warburg was testifying before the Senate. And when he was testifying there, he said, "We shall have world government whether or not we like it. The question is only whether world government will be achieved by consent or by conquest." He went on to say, "I think the essential thing we should undertake is that we declare our willingness to participate in some sort of world organization capable of enacting, administering, interpreting, and enforcing world law, whether you call it a federation, a government, or world order." Now, Mr. Warburg said that while testifying before the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, February the 17th, 1950. Also, Mr. Paul Warburg worked with President Franklin D. Roosevelt in designing the United Nations. So all of these plans for world government have been in the works for a long, long time. That's the reason many politicians are so desperate to bring Donald Trump down. Do you remember back when he was campaigning in the primaries, he had to run against both Republicans and Democrats because there were people heavily invested in both parties working towards the one world government. Now, before we're finished today, I'm going to show you that the Bible prophesies a one world government for the times just ahead. And I also want to show you the role America will play in these end times. It's going to be vitally important to you, to me, to our nation, to the whole world.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, End Time Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
Have you had a longing to visit the cities where Jesus healed, ministered, and taught every day? Judy and I would like to invite you to travel to the wonderful land of Israel. Experience the Word of God in vivid color while walking down the roads of the Holy Land with us.
When you are ready to experience Israel, we recommend you travel with Endtime Ministries. You will not only experience historical and present-day Israel, you will also learn about the prophesied future to come. It's as if we traveled back in time to visit a different era and discovered ourselves in an ancient time. The tour is very well organized, the accommodations are first class, and the food is delicious. If you have ever had a desire to visit Israel, there is no better time than now. Anne from Colorado.
To sign up to receive your Experience Israel 2019 packet, call Adrian or Jana at 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com. We can't wait to experience Israel with you.
I'll never forget being in an airport one day, and I looked over at the Time magazine on the display shelf, and and it said, Birth of the Global Nation. Well, it arrested my attention immediately because I know the Bible prophesies a one world government. But here it was on the front cover of America's most widely distributed news magazine. It was Time, July the 20th, 1992. Now, this article was written by Mr. Strobe Talbot. Here's what he said. In the 21st century, national sovereignty as we have known it will cease to exist. We will all answer to a single global authority. I looked at that. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Here it was, Time magazine. But at the time, I didn't know who Strobe Talbot was, but I was soon to find out. For very shortly thereafter, President Clinton brought him into the White House to serve as Deputy Secretary of State for the next 7 years. Now, once the Clinton administration was over, by the way, Talbot was the key figure in the creation of the International Criminal Court while he was Deputy Secretary of State. Once the Clinton administration was over, Talbot needed a new job. Well, he found a really nice job. He became president of the Brookings Institute. The Brookings Institute is one of the 3 organizations started within an 8-year period 100 years ago. The Federal Reserve Bank, the Brookings Institute, and the Council on Foreign Relations were all begun within an 8-year period. And Mr. Paul Warburg was involved in the formation of all of them. And today, they're all playing a major role in moving the United States of America into the one world governmental system. Now, it was about 2008 with the big financial crisis. I was traveling and getting ready to get on a plane. They had quite a number of newspapers out there that we could read. It was going to be a long flight. And I saw this title, "And Now for a World Government." And I couldn't believe what I saw. And it was the Financial Times, December the 8th, 2008, the most influential economic periodical in the world. It's published every day. The article was by Gideon Rockman, and here's what he said. A taste of the ideas doing the rounds in Obama circles is offered by a recent report from the Managing Global Insecurity Project. Well, that's a name, Managing Global Insecurities. That's a big job if you're going to do that. Well, anyway, whose small U.S. advisory group includes John Podesta, the man heading Mr. Obama's transition team. This was just after the election of Obama. And Strobe Talbot, the president of the Brookings Institution, from which Ms. Rice has just emerged. She left the Brookings Institute working under Strobe Talbot to become our first ambassador to the United Nations under Barack Obama. Well, I'm watching all this, and I understand already the Bible prophesies a one world government. And here I'm watching all these people that are, I know for positive, are already avid advocates of world government. And they're all coming together. Well, I kept following things. Mr. David Rockefeller, by the way, was the president of the Council on Foreign Relations for many years. Henry Kissinger was his right-hand man. Henry Kissinger left the Council on Foreign Relations to become the National Security Advisor under President Nixon and eventually became our Secretary of State. But here's what I want you to hear, what David Rockefeller said in his memoirs. Now, David Rockefeller, of course, was incredibly powerful, the chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, most all of his life. Some people believe he was the most influential single person in America. But here's what he said in his memoirs. For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents such as my encounter with Castro to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence that they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interest of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. David Rockefeller's Memoirs, page 405, published in 2002. Now remember, he was president of the Council on Foreign Relations. I have in my hand right now a copy of the latest Foreign Affairs magazine. Some people think this is the most influential periodical in the world. This is put out by the Council on Foreign Relations. And what are they talking about this edition? The new nationalism. They're also concerned because President Trump says he's a nationalist and he's against globalism. They've been working for globalism for the last 100 years. So they devoted their whole edition of this magazine to the issue of nationalism versus globalism. All right, now with that foundation laid for us to understand, suddenly enter Donald Trump. And he came with a slogan, America First. He came with Make America Great Again. And then he said, I am a nationalist. Now, when he said that, some of the people just went absolutely bonkers. They said, wait a minute, you can't say you're a nationalist. Adolf Hitler was a nationalist, and that smacks with all kinds of negative connotations. And when you say America first, that sounds so self-centered and selfish. But what President Trump was saying, was that America has been running horrible trade deficits for so many years. Why have we been doing that? Why have we been draining America of her resources, allowing other nations to enjoy great surpluses? It's almost like we're involved in a huge wealth redistribution scheme. He said, no more. He pointed out we've been running a trade deficit with China of over $500 billion a year. He said, we're putting a stop to that. Now, he said, I like free trade, but it must be fair trade. Now, remember, I'm talking about this today, not really to be political, even though politics are involved. But I'm going to show you before we're finished that your Bible prophesies a one world government, and it's going to turn out terribly, because the man that most of you know about, called the Antichrist or the Beast, he's going to end up gaining control of this one world government and imposing his will upon the nations of the world. So how's all this going to turn out? Well, is President Trump actually wrecking the planned world government system? Mr. William Galston, writing for the Wall Street Journal, said this: 7 decades of firm internationalism in the Republican Party finally have come to an end. So he's pointing out Trump has come along and just turned everything on its ear. The article was called Trump's Russia Remarks Were No Gaffe, July the 17th, 2018. That's the Wall Street Journal. Now, like I said, Trump says, I am for fair trade, but I am tired of unfair trade. So what has President Trump done to start dismantling this new world order, which is nothing but a one world government in the making? Well, he withdrew us from the Paris Climate Accord. We were going to spend trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, and it wasn't going to make 1/10 of 1 degree difference in 100 years. It was going to be like pouring all of our wealth right down our rat hole. Furthermore, he's now withdrawing us from the Iran nuclear deal. He has already done that because he claims it would speed the way for Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. Also, President Trump quickly withdrew us from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That was a trade deal that put America into 40% of the whole world's trade, and ultimately was designed to grow until 90% of the world's trade would be under this deal. 90% of America's trade with the world would be controlled with this Trans-Pacific Partnership. Then he said, I'm going to renegotiate NAFTA. We're losing money to Mexico. We're losing money to Canada. And everybody said, oh, you can't do that. You can't treat our friends that way. And yet he has. It has now been renegotiated, even renamed. And the sky didn't fall. As a matter of fact, it looks like everything is getting better. America's economy is booming. We got the highest stock market we've ever had, the lowest unemployment we've ever had, the lowest unemployment on African Americans, on Hispanics, on Asians, on women. And everybody's saying, wait, we thought things were going pretty good, but they're going a lot better now with these policies. Now, furthermore, he's in the process right now of renegotiating our Chinese trade deal, because we've been running for many years a $500 billion deficit. Furthermore, he's just announced we're withdrawing from the INF, which is the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty with Russia. And everybody's saying, you can't do that. But he says, I've got to do it because China did not sign on, and China is developing all the weapons that America is forbidden to develop because of this treaty we signed with Russia many years ago. And so he's making one move after another after another. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me show you where this is all prophesied in the Bible. In Daniel chapter 7, there's a prophecy about modern nations on the earth right now. I won't go in depth, but just simply say that a beast in Bible prophecy always represents a nation. In Daniel 7, there's a lion. The official animal symbol of Great Britain is the lion. There's also a bear. The official animal symbol of Russia is a bear. The lion had eagle's wings. The official animal symbol of the United States of America is the eagle. We're depicted growing out of the lion and then broken off from Great Britain. I mean, it's so accurate. Written 2,500 years ago, but incredibly prophesying which major nations would be on the earth and in power at the time of the return of Jesus Christ to this earth. The leopard is there. It symbolizes Germany. So all those powers in Daniel 7, they're listed as separate nations. However, when we move to the New Testament, 650 years later, Revelation 13, 1 through 2, also talks about these same nations using these same symbols, these same beasts. Listen to it. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast, single beast, not four separate ones, but a single beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was likened to a leopard, Germany. His feet were as the feet of a bear, Russia. His mouth was the mouth of the lion, Great Britain. And the dragon gave him his power and seat and great authority. The dragon here is Satan himself. So Satan is behind this globalism, this new world order prophesied in your Bible in Revelation 13, and we're watching it come to pass right now. And Trump is moving to block it, and it's like the whole political system of the world is having a nervous breakdown. You can't do that. Well, there's a reason why. This has been in development for 100 years, and Satan is behind the whole thing, and suddenly Trump is coming along, reversing it. So then, what happens to the United States? Because the eagle's wings, when all the powers of Daniel 7 combine together in Revelation 13, one power is not there. No eagle's wings. So what does that mean to us? Well, if we'll back up one chapter in Revelation to chapter 12, we see another prophecy about Israel and the United States. Verse number 13 says, and when the dragon, that's the devil, saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. Now, the woman here is depicted as a woman with 12 stars around her head. The woman is Israel. The 12 stars symbolize the 12 tribes of Israel. And she was depicted early in the chapter bringing forth a man child, the Messiah, Jesus. Now we get to the last part of the chapter, and it talks about this woman is going to be persecuted. The woman is Israel, and verse 14, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she's nourished for a time and times and a half a time from the face of the serpent. A time in Bible prophecy is 1 year, times is 2 years, and a half a prophecy, half a time is half of a year. So this is 3.5 years. That's the length of the Great Tribulation. Now this shows Israel as being protected by the wings of a great eagle. Remember who the eagle is? The United States of America. Who is Israel's only friend right now? Who is the only nation that defied the world government called the United Nations and said, we're moving our embassy to Jerusalem. We're recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. That's no accident. Now remember, these prophecies were written 2,000 years ago, yet they come to pass in 2018. So while many people don't understand the implications of everything that's going on, and they're so afraid that President Trump is wrecking the world order, the truth of the matter is he's pulling America out of the world order, and he's also aligning with Israel, and the whole new world order is going to end up being under the control of the beast or the Antichrist. The Bible says that this combo beast, body of the leopard, feet of the bear, mouth of the lion, this reveals to us which world powers are actually going to be involved in the one world government of the Antichrist. All this coming together, the new nationalism, foreign affairs. Now let me tell you, for more information, we have a DVD called Master Plan of the Dragon. And I go for over 1 hour in depth into how all this world government has been planned for all this time. You will want to view this DVD. One more time, it's called Master Plan of the Dragon. And it's been enacted for over 100 years now. To get your copy, simply go to 1-800-DALLAS at 1-800-ENDTIME, or you can also go to endtime.com. One more time, get your copy by calling 800-ENDTIME, 800-363-8463.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
If ever people needed to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for Endtime magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will impact your life. Endtime has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that Endtime magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and lead them in doctor's offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine has done in many lives. Call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and get your subscription today.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
It's getting close now. If you want to attend, you need to register right away. The conference is called Hear the Watchman Conference. It will be held at the Hilton DFW Executive Conference Center, March 28th through the 31st. To register or for more information, go to hearthewatchman.com and use this promotional code, Endtimes, ENDTIMES 20, Endtimes 20. There are many speakers at this conference. I will be one of them. Then the next week in Hickory, North Carolina, I'll be speaking at another conference. This conference is entitled The Age of Deception Conference. To register for this conference, go to thevoiceofevangelism.com. Thevoiceofevangelism.com. That's April the 4th through the 7th. That's in Hickory Metro Convention Center, Hickory, North Carolina. So 2 conferences, one of them here in the Dallas area, another one out on the East Coast in North Carolina. I'll be speaking at both of those conferences. If you can be there, I'll plan to see you there. Well, we are taking your calls in this part of the program. If you'd like to be on the air with me today, 877-END-TIME is the number to call. And while you're dialing, let me quickly take you this article, The New Nationalism. I have a couple of excerpts I want to share with you before we go to the phones. It says, concerning nationalism, but the claims of the nation are less clear and they come with ugly echoes. See what they're doing? The Council on Foreign Relations publication is throwing off on nationalism and promoting globalism. It says that nationalism comes with ugly echoes. The advocacy of those claims, nationalism, drove some of the greatest crimes in history. And so the concept became taboo in polite society in hopes that it might become taboo in practice as well. And of course, this whole thing is designed to throw off on President Trump. Later on in the article, it said, Yael Tamir suggests that the main problem today is a clash between nationalism and neoliberal globalism. Nationalists want states to intervene in the market to defend their citizens. Their opponents favor freer trade and freer movement of people. In other words, no borders. Well, there's so much more to be said about this. It's a huge subject, but I want to get to our phones right now. So let's go immediately. Maria is calling from Massachusetts. Hello, Maria.
Praise the Lord, Brother Baxter.
Nice to hear from you, Maria. What's on your mind?
Same here. Okay, this might be quickly answered because I might be misunderstanding. My question is pertaining to the beast with the 10 horns and then the little horn that uproot 3.
Yes.
We're right now part of the United Nations, correct?
Yes, we are.
Their headquarters is in New York, and I was wondering, I was studying, I've joined the JPC. Oh my gosh, I'm gobbling that up like a little kid in a chocolate factory.
Super.
But anyway, I'm absolutely enjoying the lessons, and it's my understanding that my question is, the little horn that uproots the 3, it doesn't really clearly say how they get uprooted. Could it be 3 that don't agree with the little devil horn, which is the Antichrist, right? So would it be 3 leave the United Nations? Are those 10 horns representing the United Nations? And is it 3 leaving because they know who the little horn is? And is America one of them?
Maria, the 10-horned kingdom is not the United Nations.
Oh.
The 10-horned kingdom is in Daniel 7, verse 7 and 8. It will come out of Europe. And we know that because the 10 horns in Daniel 7 and 8 symbolize the same thing as the 10 toes of the image, Nebuchadnezzar's image in Daniel 2. And it says in Daniel 2 that the iron represented the Roman Empire. The feet of iron mingled with clay represent the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire has always come out of Europe for the last 1,000 years. And then it says in verse 44 of chapter 2 that in the days of these kings, the 10 kings symbolized by the 10 toes, also symbolized by the 10 horns, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom. So these are going to be 10 kings that will form an alliance. They will be out of Europe. And then after the alliance is formed, another leader is going to come up and uproot 3. We don't know whether he will uproot them diplomatically or militarily. We don't know. Now, the latest development on this, Maria, is that on the November the 7th, Finland was the last nation to join a 10-nation union that's being put together by Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. It is a military alliance. He wants it to replace NATO. He doesn't like NATO because America dominates NATO and they can't do anything without American approval. He wants a totally European military. So that was just formed on November the 7th. We may have seen the 10-horned beast formed on November the 7th, just 3 months or so ago.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I say, wow.
Okay, so we're not even a part of the 10 horns. See, I was misunderstanding. Thank you so much. You and End Times and all that you do, I just gobble up all your videos. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. And yeah, you're right. We're not part of the 10-horned beast. That has to come out of Europe. All right. Thank you very much, Maria. So excited. I'll tell you what, reports are pouring in every day about the blessing that the Jerusalem Prophecy College has been. We just got calls this week. We've got 5 more people being baptized as a result of what they're learning in the Jerusalem Prophecy College. One of them from England. Can you believe it? So people are from England. They're taking the Jerusalem Prophecy College. That's the beauty of this thing. It's available around the world. So if you have friends overseas and you'd like to reach them, suggest to them that they enroll in the Jerusalem Prophecy College. Okay, right back to the phones now. Let's go to Patrick from New York. Hello, Patrick.
Hi, Pastor Baxter.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's on your mind?
Hey, I just had one quick thing to share, if you don't mind, and then a quick question. I noticed yesterday, oddly enough, I don't know if there's anything to this, but I noticed that there is 490 days from December 6, 2017, when President Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital, is April 10th, 2019, which is interesting, which is the day after the Israeli election, which is when I think Kushner said they'll release the peace plan after the election. So I thought that was interesting. And then my question was, if anything in Matthew 24, when it starts talking about nation rising against nation, if any of Matthew 24 is sort of a double fulfillment of what happened in 70 AD versus what will happen in the future, and if it does have a double fulfillment, like, is there any point in that chapter does it transition to specifically speaking about the last 7 years? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, Patrick. You know, when the disciples asked Jesus, what will be the sign of your coming? Or first of all, Jesus told them that the temple was coming down. And so they said to him, Lord, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? So some of the signs at the first part of Matthew 24 were given as in answer to when will the temple be thrown down. But then most of the chapter is devoted to what shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the age. Now we know that when you get to verse number 15, Jesus said, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, then let those which be in Judea flee. Now, that's the abomination of desolation, and the Bible teaches that happens 3.5 years before the second coming of Christ at Armageddon. So that's from that point on, we're in the final 3.5 years. From verse 15 on, you're in the final 3.5 years, which of course is a time yet future. Does that help any?
Yeah, I think so. So just quickly, the nation rising against nation, do you think that is a reference to, like, a battle in the future, or is that, do you think, referencing the 70 AD?
Well, that's over a long period of time. He said,
Okay.
nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, but the end is not yet.
Right.
So he specifically says the end is not yet. So exactly when all that fell, I cannot tell you. But when we get to Matthew 24:14, he said, "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, then shall the end come." And he goes immediately into the next verse without a period. He said, "And therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation." So how do we know when that's going to be? They're going to sign the peace agreement. That starts the final 7 years. The first 3.5 years, the temple will be built, animal sacrifices will be resumed, and then halfway through, the Antichrist will stop the sacrifices, saying, "You don't need these anymore. I'm your Messiah. I'm your God." That's the abomination of desolation spoken of in verse number 15. That's what triggers the Great Tribulation, which will then go on for the next 3.5 years. So from the 15th verse on, we have a very clear understanding of the order of events.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And just briefly, what do you think of the 490 days that I mentioned?
You know, I don't know what to say about that. We'll see, because, you know, yes, they said they're going to open up and reveal the Trump's peace plan after April the 9th. I'm not sure they'll do it on the 10th, because we won't even know what the government is yet. You know, when they have an election in Israel, they don't even know who their prime minister is the next day. Because what happens is there are many different parties and they get so many votes apiece. So nobody has the majority to be able to put together a government. So the party with the most votes, the most seats in the Knesset, normally President Rivlin will then ask them to try to form a government. Then they've got to put together a coalition. For example, the biggest party right now is predicted to have 36 or 37 seats, but they've got to have 61 in order to govern. That means they've got to go out and find out enough other parties that will sign on to their platform. They make out a platform, and other parties that say, "Yes, I'll agree with you, I'll vote with you," then they form a coalition. So it'll surprise me if they actually make it public on the 10th. They'll probably give it time to find out who's going to be the prime minister, but we'll have to just wait and see about that, Patrick.
Okay, well, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Now then, let's see. I think we have time. Let's go to Richard in Texas. Hello, Richard.
Yes, hello, Pastor Baxter. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
Yeah, I did have a question. By the way, I'll just say this. I appreciate your teachings. I finished the Jerusalem Prophecy College. Incredible study. I'm now teaching the Endtime series in my Sunday school, so you've been a blessing.
Fabulous, and congratulations on completing the course. It's 11 semesters, 143 lessons, so that's a great achievement for you.
Well, thank you. And I'm a high school teacher, and you're a great teacher and a great example of how a teacher should be.
Well, thank you, Richard. Listen, can you stay with me through the break, because I'm up against a hard break? I'll bring you back as soon as we get back.
Okay.
You're listening to End of the Age, and we have one more segment to go. We'll still be taking your calls. You're listening to End of the Age. Our number to call is 800 Endtime.
Many Christians admit end-time Bible prophecy is very complex and difficult to understand, and for some, a little bit scary. But what if you could understand Bible prophecy? What if you could know what will happen and how the United States will play a key role during end-time events? When you call today and get Understanding the End Time DVD curriculum, you can have peace about what is to come while understanding the prophetic events that appear in our headlines every day. When you call or go online to endtime.com and order, you'll learn the answer to the biggest prophecy question of all. Will the rapture take place, and when will it happen? This 14-part DVD series is the definitive end-time prophecy Bible study available. And for this limited time, you can get it for just $149. Don't miss this special offer. Understanding the End Time. Call now, 1-800-363-8463. That's 1-800-END-TIME. Or go to endtime.com today.
We brought Richard on before the break, and we didn't get finished talking with him, so let's get right back there. Richard calling from Texas. Okay, what's your question, Richard?
Yes, I did have a question with Luke 10:18 in Jesus' explanation of after the 70 went out and preached his word, he came back. Why would Jesus describe, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven? And I would like to just hear your explanation and your thoughts on that verse.
Okay, Richard. Well, the disciples came back and they were rejoicing because the devils were subject to them. And Jesus said, don't rejoice because the devils are subject to you, but rejoice because your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. That's the main thing. Then he went on to say, furthermore, I beheld Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion on this. I don't claim infallibility on this point, but I believe that Jesus was talking about he saw it prophetically, because we know that 3.5 years before the Battle of Armageddon, Satan is going to try to make war against God. This is in Revelation 12, verse number 7. And at that time, he will be defeated and he will be confined to the earth, no more to make any appearance in heaven. I believe the answer to your question is that Jesus saw prophetically ahead of time. He saw the vision of Satan falling, which had not really, in fact, happened yet. And like I say, I don't claim infallibility on that, but that's my opinion.
I was thinking of it prophetically. I was doing the teaching of the Mark of the Beast, and I was studying, and before that lesson, I just, that verse came up, and lightning in the Hebrew tongue is barak, and from heaven or from the heights is bama. And when you tie those two together, two nouns together, you either fill it in with an O or a U. And if you read it in the Hebrew, it says, I beheld Satan as Barack Obama. And it was just kind of curious. And I know I don't want to, I've stopped talking about time, when things are going to happen until the peace treaty signed, or who the Antichrist is. But just in doing that study, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, well, I have looked at that, and I'm not willing to say yes or no on that one. But I do believe that was a prophetic vision of the future. So beyond that, I don't know what to say about all the rest of that commentary. I have been over that material before, but I'm not willing to say yes or no.
Right, I don't, and that was just something that I fell upon, and I just wanted to get your opinion. And I do appreciate your teachings, and I've learned, and I'm still learning a lot. Well,
that's great, Richard. Keep up the good work.
Blessed, brother. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go now to Jake, calling from right here in Texas. Hello, Jake.
Yes, sir. Could you comment a little bit on the age of accountability?
Yes, there's a lot of debate about that, Jake, as you know. We really don't have anything definitive from Scripture. The closest I have come is when the children of Israel refused to go into the promised land after they'd been led out of Egypt. God did not hold all the young people below the age of 20 accountable. Everybody 20 and above that had refused to go in because they were afraid, he had them die in the wilderness except for Joshua and Caleb, and they were willing to go in. So they lived. They were the only two above the age of 20 that lived to go into the promised land. Now, I'm not willing to say that 20 is the age of accountability. I simply don't know the answer to that. However, that is one point we have. I believe that some people probably come to the age of accountability before others. Like myself, I was raised in church all my life, and I knew a lot about God, and I knew a lot about the church. So the age of accountability might have come sooner for me than it may have for someone that was raised in total ignorance about the things of God. Can't say about that, but when God starts talking to people, I think that's when they have to respond. If he's talking to people, then they need to respond to his voice. Does that help any, Jake?
Okay, yes. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go now to Mario calling from California. Hello, Mario.
Hi, good evening, Irwin Baxter. So nice to talk to you again.
Thank you.
I had a question. I'm sure you know about the Bilderberg Group and their globalist agenda.
Yes.
My question was in regards to, I took some looking as to who was in it, and I was aware of you brought aware to me that 10-nation power, the Coalition of the Willing by Emmanuel Macron. And I saw how the Prime Minister of Portugal and the Prime Minister of Estonia both were recent attendees in the Bilderberg meeting. So that kind of brings concern to me, not concern, but shows me that this power has legitimacy to it.
And you know, Murray, another thing, a lot of these international meetings like this, like the Economic Forum at Davos, Switzerland, that they hold once a year, the Bilderberger meeting, a lot of these meetings, the people that attend see themselves as citizens of the world or global citizens because they're part of big business, like, for instance, Microsoft, Apple, and all of these. They have businesses all over the world, so they don't really see themselves as American anymore, but they see themselves as citizens of the world, and that tends to lead toward globalism, whereas most of us as Americans, we would see ourselves as American citizens. So it's interesting when you see how all that works together.
Of course, and really quick, kind of something to tie onto that. I'll try not to carry on. But I'm a huge supporter of Trump as well. I know you are because he's very anti-globalist. But on top of him having a Secretary of Labor being the guy getting off Jeffrey Epstein, also a Secretary of Energy, Rick Perry, he was also a recent attendee, I think, in 2012 of the Bilderberg Group. So that kind of brought concern to me. I mean, I'm sure he has his reasons, maybe keeping your enemies close, but that kind of brings concern to me of why certain globalists are so tightly close to this administration that I support.
Yeah, and the other thing you have to realize is that most people who run for president find a way to go there to try to get the support of these global shakers and movers. You're talking about Clinton, Obama, many of these people. And so many of them do go there in order to see and be seen, and they go there and they offer speeches there so they can be sized up by these world leaders, because many people think that that's truly where the leaders of America and other nations of the world are chosen, is at these big international meetings. How true that is and how true it's not, I cannot tell you for sure, but I do believe there's some truth to it, because I know most presidential candidates do go there when they're running for president.
All right, well, that makes tons of sense to me. You know, I'm still faithful in God's plan, and his plan is the most important, but I'm confident that Trump has our best interest.
Well, we need to pray for President Trump. How much he really knows and how much he's doing because God influences him, I don't know where that line is. I do know that he said, I'm a nationalist, not a globalist, so he does understand the implications and the difference. But I would just say to all of us, we should humbly pray for our leaders, whoever they may be, because we are blessed to be Americans, and according to prophecy, we are not going to be a part of the one world government. We are going to be against the world government, defending Israel from the world government, and that's something that all of us as Americans should just profusely thank God for. So it's so important. We'll let you go, Mario. Thank you very much. Let's go now to Phil calling from Indiana. Hello, Phil.
Hello, Reverend Baxter. I certainly do appreciate your work.
Thank you.
My question quickly is, we know that the Antichrist is coming up from the Holy Roman Empire, but also in the vision with the goat and the ram, the Antichrist was depicted as being part of the empire from Alexander the Great.
Right.
And so if you could just speak to the difference between the geographical locations of the two empires, and maybe just get your thoughts on that.
Well, Phil, in the vision that you speak of in chapter 8 of Daniel, you have a ram, which was Media-Persia, fighting with the he-goat, which was Greece. And the he-goat had one huge horn. That was a symbol of Alexander the Great. He conquered the entire world by the time he was 30 years of age. But then, in the vision, the horn was broken, and 4 came up in its place. That actually happened if you study the history of it. Alexander the Great became ill and died, and there were 4 generals that divided up his empire. And those 4 generals were Greece, I believe, and Macedonia. And I'm sorry, I can't. One of them was over in Turkey, and one of them was down south in Egypt. And I don't have those names at my fingertips right now. But anyway, one out of those 4 in the latter time of the kingdom, the Bible prophesies, will wax great, and that the Antichrist will come out of one of those powers, whether it comes from Greece or Macedonia. I'm not sure we can just nail that down to the fullest extent. But anyway, if you go to the internet and you can study about the empire of Alexander the Great and what happened to it, you can see it was Macedonia, Thracia, and 2 more. And you can go there and you can read about those empires. But the Antichrist will come out of one of those places, plus the Antichrist has to come out of the Holy Roman Empire, so we can put together a definite decision that the Antichrist must come out of the former Holy Roman Empire and must come out of Europe. So we know that much for sure.
Okay. I was just curious because Alexander the Great's empire and the Holy Roman Empire, they don't overlap a lot, with the exception of Greece, maybe Turkey, which is, not part of the European Union yet. But I just wanted your thoughts on that, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Phil. Here, it's going to be easy. Once we see the 10-nation union form for sure, then we'll see another leader come up among the 10, uprooting 3. When that happens, we're going to have a pretty good idea of who the Antichrist is at that point. It's going to be very interesting to watch it all come to pass, and it will come to pass. Ladies and gentlemen, let me see. I would take another question, but I'm out of time. So for those of you that are yet on the screen, please call back tomorrow, and we'll try to answer your questions. Anyway, you've been listening to End of the Age, and let me take a moment, because there's been quite a bit said today about the Jerusalem Prophecy College. We had 200 students as of November of 2017. Today we have 2,800 and around 60 students. And it's growing by leaps and bounds. We've set a goal to have 5,000 students. You say, why do you want to do that? Because Daniel chapter 11, verse 33 says of the times just ahead of you and me, that they that understand among the people shall instruct many. This world is going to be desperate for information. If you go through the Jerusalem Prophecy College, you'll be one of those who understands. You'll understand the prophecies, how it's all going to come down. They that understand among the people shall instruct many. But you can't instruct others unless you understand yourself. So I'd like to have 100,000 that get through the college, because then we'll have quite an army that can fulfill this prophecy. So if you'd like to be a part of the Jerusalem Prophecy College, go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com, register and enroll. God bless you all. See you tomorrow.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.